so I want to show you a few things that's going to help the forearms, the wrists, and the hands. I want to start off with a technique that I learned from You're going to hear me talk about him a lot. Great French osteopath who blends Thai massage with osteopathic techniques. And this technique's called, he calls it the washing machine. It can be used on lots of different joints. I'm going to use it on the wrist. So I'm going to take my fingers, support underneath, and then on top, with a pretty good squeeze and a little bit of a traction, I'm going to begin to explore range in her joint. She's got some tension, so this is a good one to do with her. But just like I'm taking those little bones and I'm trying to feel where their edge is, and just there's lots of little movements. It's almost like a washing machine who's like going swish, 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 wash from side to side.
Maybe you can show where you put your fingers exactly.
Yeah. So it's like making a pretty tight bracelet, right? So I take my middle fingers underside here, and then my thumbs here, and then the other ones kind of support. There's a fair share of pressure. And sometimes, maybe I'm going to use the middle finger, sometimes I'll use the pointers. Depends on the size of the person. I think sometimes my middle fingers come more towards the top of the wrist, along the pointers underneath. Really, you may even sometimes hear a little mobilization as things open up. Now I started, and this is also something you can do this. It feels really nice to the finger joints. It's kind of coming out little micro circles. If you're working with older people, you might have to be a little more gentle. But you have, even like this, you could softer with someone who has arthritis to just give some gentle mobilization in the fingers is great. So that's what I call the washing machine technique. Now, if somebody's really, really tight, before you go into that, you may choose to do what I'm about to show you, which is some myofascial work on the forearms. And if you do myofascial work on the forearms before doing the washing machine technique, you may have a little less resistance. I sometimes will do the washing machine to help let the forearm be a little bit more open. Sometimes I do it the reverse way, so I'll leave it up to you what you're going to decide for yourself. Let me name that before we started the film, I had Marian move over to the side of the table so that I had a broader surface area that I could work with her without getting her pec overly torqued. And if you're working with a client, you may have them move to make a little bit more room for you. So I'm going to begin with giving her a little lotion. And I'm going to show you a few ways, both with the forearm and also knuckles, how to open up the connective tissue and fascia through here. I often will use my own thigh as a bolster to make it a little bit more comfortable both for her and also for me. I'll sometimes support the elbow, and then I'm going to begin kind of like with a flat iron to open up the wrist and forearm. So I'm going to support her underneath. And really slowly begin to iron the extenders of her fingers. So if you have somebody, Marian, I'm going to have you wiggle your fingers. Yeah. So if you're working with people who work with a computer, sometimes I'll tell them to, type out their name. And you're basically helping to undo, there you go, all of what they do throughout the day. This is great for people who work with their hands, fellow body workers, people who type. So, I'm going to just generally show you, so that's some broad. Also, she's pretty tight in the pecs. You may sometimes need to open up people's pecs first so they've got enough mobility to be flat on the table. So that's something to keep in mind with your own practice. You let me know if it's too much. You can also use flat knuckles, and depending on the height of your table, because I work with a tall table, I may choose to get up on my tippy toes. But you can use your flat knuckles, which really works really great. It's like they perfectly fit in between the muscles of the forearms. Slowly wiggle your fingers and release. Now flatten your hand and then flex your wrist up toward it with straight fingers up towards the ceiling. And change directions. Shorten and go back down. And have you do that again. So down towards the table. And another direction. And change directions. A lot more. And down. Good. And it's often really nice to kind of spread it out. You could do a lot more detailed work, especially up in here as it joins the elbow and transition up to here, but I want to stay with the forearm for now. This one is super, super great for people who do a lot of work like this. And I'm going to be, at times, inviting my client to spread their fingers wide, kind of like a duck's foot, and what that's going to do is going to spread out all the connective tissue and fascia between, and then I'm going to also have them let them go. And I'm going to especially have them do that as I come down at the wrist and in transitioning into the hand. So I'm going to change my body position, support their wrist, and I'm going to start with just a kind of a flat iron just to warm the area. I may move their wrist a little bit. I sometimes will change the angle. Sometimes I'll use a guiding hand. She's pretty tight. Let me know if it's too much, Marian. So I want you to slowly straighten your fingers and widen your fingers too, especially the little pinky one. Yeah, there you go. And release. And slowly straighten and widen. And release. So sometimes I'll go like this and then I'll change to come like this through to the wrist. So I'll probably start with her. And then right through here, this is a great opportunity to have them spread their fingers wide, the way a duck's foot would be, and release a little, and again, and release. Yep. You're right? Just a little intense, huh? Yeah. Okay, let me do it again. I find that especially at this part of the hand, using this part of the elbow can be really quite powerful once you get to practice. If you aren't super comfortable yet, you can also use your thumb to help guide your way through it. Yeah, this is going to be good but intense. Wiggle your fingers a little bit, wiggle them wide, and then let them go. And then do wide like a duck's foot, everything wide and flat. Yep, and let go. Good. You know, and I could do more specific work with her like that, but for now you'll end with just a little transitioning. You can even just do some wrist circles while giving firm support. And that is the forearm work and the washing machine for the wrists and